Meanwhile, with Oscar and Ruby, they finally woke up and they were stretching out for a little bit before preparing themselves for the long journey ahead. Their location was way more further away in comparison to Blake, Yang, Jean, and Neo's location. They had to get some supplies as well. Once when they arrived, they couldn't help to encounter something quite unexpected. It was a xenomorph, but it was trapped. In some kind of a cage. It had weird markings on its head that looked like it just escaped out of a net. They got a good close look at it and realized something. It was stuck under a large piece of what looks like a piece of a train, and on top of it looked like a piece of a train that exploded, and well, a good chunk of it landed on the xenomorph. The xenomorph looked at him and hissed. Then they realized that a part of its tail was missing. Jackson saw it too. That's interesting. Anyways, continue on to the journey. As much as Oscar wanted to continue, Ruby couldn't help to look at it. The xenomorph that she couldn't help to name by the name of Grid. Ruby couldn't help to stare at Grid, as what she ended up calling it. She couldn't help to stare at it. And Grid amazingly stared back. Not aggressively, unlike its xenomorph brethren. Grid stared at Ruby in complete confusion on why she's not rather walking away or attempting to end its life. Oscar noticed it as well. Ruby, what are you doing? I want to help it. You want to what? Even Jackson was shocked. Ruby, you want to help a most dangerous creature that we're currently trying to avoid. You want to help it? Of course I want to help it. Think about it this way. Think about it. Didn't somebody, help to save the Predator's life by killing an alien, and the Predator earned the humans' respect and left them alone and saved their life from return? And just didn't bother them at all anymore? Yeah, but what if the same thing goes for xenomorphs? What if they do the same thing? If you help them, they'll help you in return and leave you alone. Are you even sure that was gonna happen? Are you even sure that's even gonna happen? No. But not everyone deserves death. And they certainly don't deserve to be locked up like this while sort of dying like this. Everyone could help to admit Ruby had a point. Grid did not deserve this. Even though he is sort of like a dangerous predator. A very dangerous, lethal predator. He didn't deserve it. He doesn't deserve this. At least that's what they're calling. And they're assuming that he's just a male or something. Or probably just a random female. they don't really care on what the gender is at this point. Ruby approached Grid. Grid could help to hiss. Well, I'm not a threat to you. I want to help. Don't kill us if we set you free. Grid stared at the human confusion, very confused. Ruby noticed that its acid blood's not hurting it. It's not eating its skin. How is this possible? Ruby said. It's because their own acid doesn't affect them. Not even acid from other aliens. It doesn't really affect them. They're immune to their own blood. Huh, that makes sense. Grid, if you don't mind me calling you that, Oscar and I are going to help you. Please don't kill us if we set you free. Do you understand what I'm saying? Grid tilted his head aside, confused, but he would like some help, and so far there was no sign of any of his Xenomorph brethren showing up. I've been helping him out. Grid surprisingly shook his head up and down. Everyone's eyes were widened and their mouths dropped. Jackson was more shocked than everyone else. Holy crap. These aliens are a lot more smarter than I thought. They're willing to allow humans to help them out? So, you're not going to kill us if we're going to help you. Grid shook his head left to right, giving Oscar his answer. Alright then. Just hang on, let us get you out of this cage first, and we're going to lift that thing right off you. After trying so hard, Ruby and Oscar finally managed to open up the cage. Then they came into the alien, avoiding on not touching its blood. Or at least trying to, at least. Once when they got at a good position to lift the little debris off of Grid, they slowly lifted up, but they were having difficulty because there was some trouble because it was so heavy. Grid noticed it and lent them a helping hand, using his body to slightly stand up, giving them a little helping hand. Okay, this is new. He's kind of helping us because he understands that we're trying to help him. Or do they really have a gender at all, or do they mind being called a male or a female? They don't really mind. I don't really know what their specific gender is, but they won't really mind being called rather a he or she. After having that short little conversation with Jackson, they continued to lift the little debris up until it was high enough so Grid can jump out of the way. And Ruby and Oscar dropped it. They made direct eye contact to Grid. Even though he didn't really have any eyes, he just stared at them. He then hissed at them as his way on saying, "Thank you." Ruby sort of wanted to reach out and touch him, but realized that there was still acid blood on him. Besides that, Grid hissed at her. He was willing to accept their help, but he was not willing. He was willing to allow them to help him, but he was not wanting to become anyone's pet. And besides, if there was one master he was wanting to serve, it was a queen. Even though Grid found it difficult on how he was going to repay them in return. Besides of just leaving them alone. Grid couldn't help but sigh and just stared at them for a while longer, for hearing his brethren nearby. He would fight them, but not knowing how many are there, and not wanting them to report to the Queen about this, he decided to make up a little lie. I am telling them that Oscar and Ruby had a little alien inside of them. Luckily enough, there was two little face huggers nearby. Grid grabbed the face huggers and dragged them close enough to them. Ruby and Oscar realize what he's trying to do. He's trying to make up a little lie. Ruby and Oscar pretend that they were having a little alien inside of them. So they lie down on the ground and close their eyes. Grid pushed the dead face huggers right next to their heads to make it look like that the face huggers came off. Once when the Xenomorphs arrived, they took a look at the scene, realizing that those two humans have little aliens inside of them, and decided to leave them alone. They told Grid to report back to the Queen. Grid understood and told them that he'll be right there. Once they were completely gone, Grid turned around and gave them the all clear. This was just one part of his repayment of, him saving their lives, sort of, but he wanted to do something else for them. But was just not quite sure what it was yet. Oscar and Ruby stood up. Thank you, Grid, if you don't mind us calling you that. Grid shook his head left to right, telling them that he does not mind being called that. Sort of. Listen, we're trying to get to here. Do you know the way? Or a little shortcut? Grid shook his head up and down and pointed a direction. It was the same direction where his brethren came from. Thanks. We won't forget you, Grid. Grid, seeing them waving their hands goodbye to him, looked at his own hand and waved right back, saying goodbye. Oscar and Ruby couldn't help to look at how intelligent Grid is. Is it just me, or Grid is a lot more smarter than an average xenomorph? Yeah, he's willing to allow us to help him out, and in return, he saved our lives. Grid stared until they were completely gone. Was not quite sure on how he was going to fully repay them besides just leaving them alone. He wanted to do something more, because that was a very tight situation that he was just in. It was very dangerous, too. His brother most likely would have left him there to die. But these humans were willing to help a xenomorph, a predator, unlike anything the world's ever seen. Grid wanted to do something more. He just couldn't think on what he wanted to do for them in return. But regardless, Grid was very, very, very grateful for them. He was very grateful for them. He was not going to forget them.